I'm here now. That's
Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Good to see you. Before we get started, I want to thank Lynn. We've been getting the updates and the emails from all the storm damage and debris and things of that sort, and your crews have been out working quite a bit. So thank you for the emails and the updates, and give a special thanks to your crews for all the work they've been doing. Really appreciate that.
If everything goes really well, I'll have one more update at the end of the day that kind of lets you know that everything's finally back to normal and all operations are up 100%.
Very good. Thanks, Lynn. Appreciate it. Okay, we got agenda review for Wednesday, August 21st, the big day. We're going to have a Sedgwick County Commissioner meeting, BOCC meeting, and we'll have a Fire District #1 meeting. So we have agendas for both. Tom, take it away.
the budget time, but I'll let Tanya, going to talk about announcements first.
We will have Jeanette Livingston from CDDO talk about an award that Project Search has received for 100% job placement for interns. So she'll be here to talk about that. And that is the only announcement we'll have for next week.
Oh.
Okay, and then we have we jump right into new business. No other preliminary work before the meeting starts. It's budget adoption day, but there are a few other items before we get into the budget. And this was put in a specific order for a specific way, but all of it, of course, is adjustable based on what the commission, how they want to hear these things. The first item of new business is the elevator public hearing for the elevator codes. I don't anticipate, I'm looking at Chris, and I don't anticipate we'll see a lot of people there. That item should not take that long. So we'll do that first. Then Lindsay's going to present the sale of the GO bonds. And I don't know that that will take all that long. Then our old friend Scott from planning has his place on the meeting. It's a zone change, and we could have a handful of people show up for public comment there. So we'll handle that at the top of the agenda. And then we get into budget D and E. Item D is the public hearing for revenue neutral rate. And item E is the adoption of the budget and CIP program. And there will be, we expect, and we know, a number of motions during that item. So that it will take a bit. And we will hopefully get through budget. And then we also have a bid board. And before the meeting, Commissioner Dennis, you want to go ahead?
Thank you. When I was reading the bid board minutes, the last item on there is for some education for evening reporting for corrections. And there looked like two bids that were received. One was $55,000 more than the other one. And they went with the one that was $55,000 more. And the question was asked, why would we choose the one that was $55,000 more? And the answer for purchasing was that it was an RFP, so money doesn't matter. Well, that's not an answer that I can accept because it's taxpayers' money no matter what. I don't care if it's from a grant or from our property tax, it's still taxpayers' money. So I need a better answer than it doesn't matter because it's an RFP.
All right. Steve is on Zoom. Steve, are you hearing the discussion?
Good morning. I do hear. I didn't know that there were. I thought there was only one bid.
Okay.
Chris,
Chris, can you hear the conversation, Morales?
The services they were going to provide. Yeah, I am. We're getting some information right now.
Okay, maybe we come back to this then? Let's go through this and if there's.
Or we can just defer it on Wednesday. I don't care what.
Yeah. Whatever, yeah. Or we'll get you an email, and if push come to shove, we can pull it.
Yeah, we can pull it and defer it if there's more questions that we can't answer. So
All right, we're good.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, now you can mute. Anything else on item F, Board of Bids and Contracts? Any other new business items? Okay.
Real quick, I just want to make sure I understand. Obviously, item D, we're going to open a public hearing. Item E, that's the adoption piece of this. So the public hearing piece of this happens in item D, correct?
Chairman Justin Wagner, County Councilor, that's correct. One of the things I would suggest is if there are people who sign up a public comment, for example, would say they wanted to speak on item E, would be to redirect them to item D, because that is the public hearing.
Sure.
That is where by statute, both for the actual budget, but also for the revenue neutral rate, those are the designated hearing times now. We'll talk about that further, I believe, but I think that's a fair question to ask.
I'll make sure. Good.
Maybe we should change can we expand upon the title of that too, that there will be public comment? We should, let me work with the title.
There is no public comment in E. I mean, it says public hearing regarding the budget for D already. What would you want to change?
Oh,
'Cause
okay.
This is
No,
the
you're good.
statutory language.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Now that it reads, it's because there's an and in there.
We'll clarify it when we open up the meeting.
Chairman, I have another item.
Please, yeah.
So I've been working with legal. I have, it may not be perfect, and I don't know if I'm not sure we can adopt it just yet, but at least I can introduce it and we can discuss it. And it's possible it could be adopted, but I don't know that that will happen. This is regarding the sales tax resolution on how we spend the 50% of the current county's portion of the 1% sales tax. And it makes some guardrail, if you will, so that the sales tax dollars are used for those discretionary, I'll use the word generally speaking, quality of life. There's a few things that are not typically, we may not consider quality of life, but I think sit on that side of the budget. Anyway, so we address that in resolution. The intent is to create a guardrail so that property tax dollars can't flow that direction. Anyway, with that, I would like to see that added to the agenda for a more robust discussion and potential adoption. If not, maybe some comments from the commission for us how to make it better, and then we might bring it back at a later date for again additional discussion. So, but to get that ball rolling, I think we need to spend about 10 or 15 minutes on this resolution idea.
Good. Do you want to do that? What are you wanting to do that?
Well, I think the concept does impact the 25 budget. We may not adopt this just yet, but with this in mind, I do think we ought to have, some mental thought on whether or not that's how we are managing our money. That it may not actually have constraint on the 25 budget, but I do think that in concept, this is where I'm trying to go. I think we ought to at least have a discussion. If there's agreement about the concept of that, I'd like to maybe, do our very best to consider how that might impact the decisions going into the 25 budget. So I think it's relevant. I would actually maybe like to have it before item D.
Well, Lindsay, I actually am interested in what this motion will be and what this presentation will be. I have some fears on the CIP portion of this. It'd be my only fear in some of these things. So I do think it merits a deeper conversation to make sure we can vet some of these things out. Do you think it has a 25 budget implication, or is this something that can happen?
It most likely will not for this one. I think we've talked about this with Commissioner Howell. Whatever has already been budgeted for those areas is well under what would be included in even with CIP, even in that sales tax amount. Now in future years, I agree, we need to have a conversation about the CIP, but if you recall, Tanya removed and the commission removed many of the parks CIP items for this year's budget because we're proposing a master plan to look at that. And so when that comes back to the commission, I think that would have to be part of the conversation. But yes, I think based on what's proposed in the 2025 budget, assuming the commission isn't going to change it up significantly, we're fine to have that conversation now.
Okay. Is this something that should be done more in a staff setting, like a staff meeting, Commissioner? I want to honor your request.
Well, my thought is the public, you get more public awareness, more media awareness, more robust discussion if we do this in the BOCC. My preference would be under a BOCC.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
So do we have to do it on budget adoption day? Because it's not going to be part of the budget. Can we do it the following week? It's going to be a long meeting.
We can, and just to be clear, are we meeting on September 4th?
Yes.
We can. What I don't want is I don't want someone to say, well, that's pretty good discussion, Commissioner Howell, but we should have done that during budget season. And therefore, let's push it back till next year. If that happens, I will not support September 4th. I want this to be done now, and I can push off to September 4th. I don't want to hear someone say that as a response to, so, well, you should have done this 2 months ago or last week or whatever. As long as you guys are not going to make that comment, then September 4th is fine.
So I would say that I have incredible interest in this conversation. So this is a conversation I do want to have. I bet there are questions that I have, and I think that part of that CIP conversation, what that looks like. And so you'll have my word that if we want to do it on September 4th, I think we could put it on September 4th. If you want it in a BOCC meeting versus a staff meeting, I'm fine with that conversation. I think it's a worthy conversation.
And I agree. I think it bears discussion. I think there's some ideas there that I think probably we could work in the future. This is going to be a busy meeting.
I understand that. So let me just be clear. This is going to create some guardrails in how we manage our money. If someone comes to us in November, if we say we adopt this thing, someone comes to us in November and said, we really need a couple $1 million for this or that, and it's on that side of the budget. The answer is going to say, well, this resolution gives us a guardrail for a reason. Again, we can not, to some concerns of others, we can say notwithstanding this guardrail, we're going to jump over the guardrail in this case. I would rather not do that. I think it gives us a reason to vote no. And it's a legitimately good reason. You might say, I care deeply about the topic. I could fill in the blank on those topics. I care deeply about that, but we have put in place fiscal restraints on purpose to keep this type of thing from happening. We cannot continue tapping millions and millions and millions of dollars of property tax dollars and expect us to get a handle on our property tax spending.
Sure.
So this is a guardrail. We need it. And I don't want to wait till next year to do this. We need the guard. So again, if we adopt this, say on the 4th or sometime during September, it helps us make better decisions this point forward. And I want that guardrail as a backup.
Lindsay, Justin, Tom, any concerns if we do this in September for what was just described, if we have that conversation? Okay. Then we'll have that conversation.
We'll put a placeholder on the 4th.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, then we move into consent agenda. G, H, I, and J are all USD agreements with ComCare. I want to have Tim. It's important, so I want to have him spend just a minute and talk about those.
That first item G, is what I think of as our legacy school agreement. So for 15 or 20 years now, we've had staff in USD 259 school buildings. And so item G represents that agreement, that they provide space, we provide staff, and we've been doing that for years and years. The next three, H, I, and J, are tied to the MHIT program that's been really successful. We initially piloted it. We're very successful now. These are three. There are a couple more that will be coming to follow. So that's what those four are.
But that's only 3 out of 10 school districts.
Right.
Can you tell us what school districts are not included in any of these ideas?
I don't have that with me right now. We'll send an email this afternoon. This is not all of the MHIT schools. Those three are not all of them, but I can't tell you off the top of my head which ones are engaged and which ones
I think it's an
aren't.
important program. I'd like to see it included in all the school districts. That's my point.
Sure. And some of it depends on the school applying for that participation as well.
Item L and M are ambulance service or EMS service items, and Rusty's here, but I'll try item L. And I think Rusty had sent you an email earlier. This is the resolution amending the code regarding ambulance services, and it's mostly just cleanup and language cleanups. This is Rusty and Chief Lannerman and Brinker.
Chief Lannerman, Dr. Brinker, Angela, myself, Kevin Stamper worked on this over the course of several months, actually, to get the language down to where it needed to be. And there's a lot of definitions and language that was historic, reference entities that don't exist anymore, inconsistent with state statute, inconsistent with EMS board administrative regulations. We did all that cleanup and brought it into contemporary language standards and compliance standards. We updated the air ambulance section in 2018, and there was a 5-year sunset, which would have expired in August or September of 23, which was one reason we were working on it. And then it ended up taking a while to get through everything, but that remained in place because what was put in place in 2018 reflected how things were working and how they continue to work. So it simply removed the sunset and left that intact, generally. And then the chapter 11, in 2019, EMS fees for service had a slight increase. They were passed through the budget process. There also needs to be a resolution that accompanies that relates to the ordinance. And so right now there's a revenue package that is seemingly going to be passed with the budget. If for some reason it is not, then this would be pulled from the agenda. But if it is passed through the budget adoption, then whenever you authorize consent, that resolution will be in place for those to go, the new fees to go into effect January 1 of 2025.
Thanks, Rusty. So Rusty just covered basically L, and it also explains M. I'm going to come back to K. I skipped over that. That is a consideration of the Second Amendment to KDAD's 988 operational grant. I talked with Tim earlier. That's just an extension of the grant is all that is.
Can I ask you another question about L? I would like to get some data on that. I was going to bring up a question about the air ambulance service. Can we get some data on how much transport they've done as a consequence of that amendment in 18? I think this was a good move, but I'd like to see some data if it's available on what type of services have they actually provided in that 5-year window. That would be good to see that.
I'll ask for that information.
If they have it. Yeah.
It's going to be
I know it's very small.
very small.
I get that. Also, does this have any impact if we were to add a station, any place in the county? Does this have any bearing on our footprint and how we provide services to different parts of the county? Does this have anything to do with, like, for example, the CRVs in Clearwater and Cheney?
Talking about L?
Yes. And is there any impact on that aspect of what we do?
I don't think so, Rusty.
There should be no legal aspect.
Okay.
And then item N, which is also on consent, is consideration of a budget transfer for moving expenses for ComCare from the current site on Broadway to the site on Woodlawn. And it's transferring money from personnel to commodity to allow for that.
Do you have any fiscal note estimate?
$500,000.
The ComCare has prepared an estimate for moving, setup, everything associated with the transfer, or the move. And they have estimated that as no more than $500,000. And so that's why this budget transfer request is in. Anything over $250,000 has to come to the commission.
The rest of the consent items are just routine business. And then we have a fire agenda where we go through the same exercise regarding adoption of budget. I know we'll have at least one motion there. But that's it for that budget or that for that agenda.
Let's chat. Historically, what have we done on adoption day? Where have we inserted? Have we gone through the entire BOCC agenda and then done fire, or we inserted fire right after the?
How do you want to do it, Chairman? Whatever the will.
In my view, it feels like we should have the budget right behind the budget. I think that'd be easier to keep it all in the same vein. Is everybody okay with that? So do it before consent? Or before bid board? Okay.
If there's a lot of fire staff in the room, it might be worthwhile reversing with the fire budget before the BOCCs. I think BOCC will be a much longer discussion.
We could do what we did last week and just put that right out of the chute, the fire.
If there's a bunch of fire staff.
Yeah, we can take a peek at that. I think you're right that the BOCC is going to be a longer budget discussion. I just want to keep the budgets together in order, sequential order. So we'll take a peek at that. Okay. Make that decision, but we'll do that before, at the very least, we'll do it before bid board.
Okay. That's all we had.
Anything else? That's it. Everybody have a good weekend. See you on, I guess we'll see you on Monday. Take care.